Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about how to draw reflective surfaces. Reflective surfaces can include anything from metal to glass to sunglasses, any reflective surface you can think of. Today I am working on drawing this vase, which I would call a semi-reflective surface. It's not like mirror glass that reflects everything around it, but it does contain some reflections. There's a few main things to keep in mind when you are drawing reflective surfaces. The first one is that you want to start with the big picture values and then save the details for last. So don't get into the tiny little details in every individual reflection first. Rather, save those for the very last thing. Also, it's really important that you capture your values accurately. So in any given area of the drawing, you don't want to exaggerate or increase the amount of contrast that you see, and you don't want to downplay it or decrease the amount of contrast. Because in most reflective surfaces, there will be areas that have really high contrast and areas that have really subtle contrast. Certain highlights may be brighter than other highlights, so comparing the brightness of your different highlights is useful as well. Other things to keep in mind, so when you do come to the end of the drawing and you're working on the details, you want to make sure you include distortions in your reflections. So for example, if you're drawing a circular reflective surface, anything it reflects, it will make it look more rounded. If it was reflecting a light fixture, a square light fixture, it would make it look rounded. So you don't want to draw it as a flat light fixture, you want to draw it as a rounded reflection on the glass, and that will help the object to look three-dimensional in the drawing. Also, pay attention to the edges of your outline, or the edges of your reflections, and where they meet the rest of the object, and notice if the edges of your reflections are blurred or crisp. You want to try to capture that in the drawing. I would say if you're not sure which one to go for, err on the side of blurring the edges of your reflections. Also keep in mind you may not be able to draw every detail of every reflection into the drawing depending on the size of paper you have. So I recommend just kind of blurring out some of the details or being really general with them in the areas where you don't have space to capture every detail, because those big picture value gradients, the overall look of the drawing is more important than getting exact details within the reflections themselves. Okay, I will pause this here. I'll zoom in and show you a few things. You can see here that I've blocked out my general areas of value so far. So I've just got a general shape for each of the reflections. I don't have any sort of detail within those. And then I've blocked out my dark mid-tone for the foreground, light mid-tone for the background, medium to dark mid-tones, darkest areas within the vase, and then the reflections are my whitest areas. I am paying attention to the directionality of my strokes here, so trying to use cross contour lines to kind of wrap around the rounded form of the vase. And from here, I'm going to start adding more details to the reflections and more layers of media to get any sort of gradients in there in the mid-tone areas of the vase. So now I've added some more gradients to the mid-tones of the vase. I've also gone in and looked at each of the highlights individually and added some nuance there. So within each chunk of highlight, this one, for example, the top part of it here is a little darker, and then the middle part of it is bright white, so I wanted to capture that. And then this one is reflecting a window and it has some rungs of the window in it, so there's tiny little details that I could add there. After darkening the vase, background or the table that the vase is resting on isn't quite dark enough, so I've been going in with these big, long circular strokes to get a little darker with the table so the vase continues to stand out as I add layers to the vase. I won't be able to get all the details in every single reflection, but sharpening my pencil consistently really helps with that, helps me get the precision I need at this stage. And then just being patient and continuing to add layers to the drawing is really helpful as well. You can take a look at the slideshow on drawing reflective surfaces to see photos of this drawing in progress with notes on those just to reinforce what I've gone over in this presentation. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you.